Red. 4 years, $212 million deal for Tua, keeps him in Miami. This puts him behind Joe Burrow and Trevor Lawrence, but ahead of Jared Goff, Justin Herbert, Lamar, and Jalen Hurts. Nick, I was surprised by this deal because there was always this health concerns. Are they committed to Tua?
Yeah.
Did this take you by surprise?
Yeah, I think it's a mistake. And I really like Mike McDaniel. I think he's very sharp, and I have graded him on a curve, which is look at everything he's doing with a, to me, obviously limited quarterback. He now has seemingly signed off and advocated, because we know the owner's not in love with Tua. The owner tampered with Tom Brady to try to replace Tua, tried to go get Deshaun Watson, tried to replace Tua.
Now maybe fell in love with him.
Maybe
he's giving him $200 million.
But if he did, I would imagine it wouldn't be because it would be in part because Mike McDaniel's vouching for him. So the reason I say all that is the curve is now removed. You have now signed off on this guy is a force multiplier. This guy is not, a bus rider. He is a bus driver. Okay. I don't think he is. And so I would have, if I were the Dolphins, I would have, Tua, are you really going to miss games? Is that what you're going to do? I would have had him play out this year. If he plays well, say, I know it's a crummy businessman, probably going to franchise tag you while we figure out what we're going to do with the quarterback position. Like I wouldn't tie myself to Tua at north of $50 million a year. The Dolphins have. I think there's a ceiling on their team with him as the quarterback. I think that, and that's even if every game's in 80 degrees balmy.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not surprising. I thought it was going to happen, but I think it's a mistake.
I don't mind it. I don't mind it because sometimes when things work, not necessarily because of just one individual, but because of the addition of others, you try to hold on to it. And that's what this is. Like, if Tyreek Hill isn't here, if McDaniel isn't here, like, this deal doesn't get done. Tua, I don't even think we're talking about it. But when he got Tyreek Hill and he partnered and paired his talents and ability with his head coach, it makes it work. And it actually puts them in a position to where they are a very competitive and a contender and have been the last few years. So for me, I don't mind it. He is not one of the best quarterbacks in all of football. But with his coach, with the way he calls games, with how he gets rid of the ball, with the scheme, with the weapons around him, you're talking about him like he is at portions throughout the season. So for me, it's inevitable he was going to get paid.
So I guess, but with what you're just, when you say with the weapons, with the coach, with the system, does that not then, doesn't the logic follow that they can get someone else to do that much cheaper? And then make sure you keep those weapons or use those resources to help your defense or your offensive line, which you lost pieces of over the course of the year. Go ahead, Greg.
No. Okay. You could, but I'm gonna tell you why they wouldn't. Because you know who's at Dolphins practices almost every single day? You know what quarterback is there almost every single day? Dan Marino.
Yeah.
You know what they haven't had since Dan Marino's left?
Any success.
Any type of success.
Playoff win.
And you know what they are experiencing? Some forms of success.
A little.
It's more than what they have. So when you feel like you have a chance, when you feel like you have a chance, and if you can now get a playoff game at home versus in the bitter cold in Kansas City against the best quarterback doing it.
But they would have. They had that. That's my point. They had it all in front of them, and they fell apart again.
Did Tua fall apart, or did they fall apart?
No. We watched those games. The end of this year,
it was Tua.
No. It was absolutely in part Tua. They were not scoring 70 points. They were not high flying. They were not rolling. And absolutely part of it was Tua played his worst football against his best opponents at the end of the season, and looked like he wanted nothing to do with that playoff game. Nothing to do with it.
He can't play well in the cold.
Then you can't be an NFL quarterback.
Well,
Hey,
give him another shot at it.
Hold on. What is it?
I want to have Tua's going to. The Dolphins will win the AFC East. Okay, that's where predictions week coming up. The Dolphins will win the AFC East. Tua led the league in passing. I think he has throws for the most yards this year? Probably not. But I like the fact that the Dolphins are committed to him. If they do come up short, I feel like Mike McDaniel will start to have to shoulder some of this.
That's what I said.
Some of this blame.
Yeah.
Not.
Okay, it's hard for me to keep up because Nick's now saying that the Dolphins fell apart. And if that means that they fell apart, then that means the Chiefs didn't beat them. But before he said that the Chiefs did beat them. So it's like, I really can't keep up then in that regard. Because he's so inconsistent that I can't make sense of that. But I understand to a degree what Nick is trying to say because it's something that people have been talking about now for years, quite frankly. Of this idea of like, all right, if the system and the pieces and the coach is why you're having so much success, then why not get a cheaper quarterback? But again, the idea is that it doesn't mean that you can just plug and play any quarterback. I understand that the roster for the 49ers is elite and Shanahan is an elite coach. Doesn't mean that anyone can just go in there and do what Brock Purdy can do. It's just not the way it works. And it's going to be the same thing for Tua, obviously to a lower degree, considering the Dolphins hasn't been as successful as the 49ers. But I think if you're just talking about this 4-year extension, first off, the price point actually makes sense because the way how the salary cap is going, really $60 million contracts now, 60, 65 is looking like 50, 55. So the fact that they now locked him in at 50, like 53, whatever it ends up being, that now is essentially equivalent to like 45, right? Like loose math, 40, 45. So it's actually, this contract will actually age pretty well. And if you're asking, is Tua in this current climate, is he a $40-45 million quarterback? I would say yes, he absolutely is. He absolutely is. So I think the deal is actually pretty good. I think it's actually a good deal. And Tua has showed you enough, as even Nick is essentially conceding, where he's saying, listen, I would let him play out this year, and I would then franchise tag him. That means you're giving him a couple more years. Well, then you can do that with him. Yes, it's going to be technically a little bit more expensive, but take care of your quarterback, take care of your team. You're going to have a better locker room because of it. The players want Tua to get paid. The players want Tua there. The coaching staff obviously wants it as well. So now it's also just good from a locker and culture building. And then there you go. Because we can talk about, hey, look what Kirk Cousins did with all the franchise tagging and this or that and the Commanders. And it's like, yeah, how'd that work out for them? It worked out for Kirk Cousins because he got paid. But how did it work out from a culture standpoint and acquiring free agents and keeping players for the Commanders and coaches and all that? Not good at all. So I think what the Dolphins did here is actually pretty smart. They signed Tua at the right time where I don't think it's going to be like as insane of a contract because of how the salary cap, is going up. And I think the Dolphins absolutely can have a lot of success with Tua. Listen, do I think Tua is like a top 3 quarterback in the NFL? Probably not. Do I think under the right circumstances that the Dolphins can have the same levels of success that the 49ers have been able to have with Brock Purdy, with Jimmy Garoppolo, whatever it may be? I do. I really, really do. They're not there yet. Maybe they are this season. I don't know. They have to get their defense right. They do have to get, I think, more physical and more consistent on offense in a way that's not so reliant on the flashy, super creative plays, because that does not go well into the cold weather games. That doesn't go well. That doesn't travel well on the road against Kansas City in the freezing cold, right? We've known that for like decades at this point now, that it's just like those types of offenses don't necessarily travel. You have to be able to win a more physical, tight game that the Dolphins have not really necessarily been designed to do. And so I think that will then be on the coach to kind of fine tune that. But that doesn't mean that they can't do it. Just because someone hasn't done something yet doesn't mean they can't do it. But again, last season, the offense was limited in that playoff game, but their defense was decimated. Their defense was decimated, and yet that was still a close game. What happens if that defense wasn't decimated? Do the Dolphins win that game? Do they force a turnover? Do they give Tua great field position? A possession where they're at the Chiefs 40, which now leads to a touchdown or a strategic field goal. Like, that's all possible. The fact that it was that close with a decimated defense, you can make the argument that they're just there. That they're just there. I understand Tua individually maybe didn't necessarily step up against the Bills in that final game of the season. But the defense didn't either. The defense kept getting hurt. I think that's where they also lost a couple players. But Josh Allen was able to just put his head down and get to work. The defense was there, but they didn't step up. The defense could have taken that game over. You can't always put all the weight on the quarterback. And then again, like, I think also in that game, Tyreek Hill was kind of in and out. It was like unclear, like, is he hurt? Is he not? Is he coming back? I think that's what happened in that game against the Bills, which again is difficult. You're taking away his number one target. Let's not pretend like Patrick Mahomes would be balling out if Travis Kelce was in and out of the lineup, or if Tyreek Hill was in and out of the lineup when Tyreek Hill was important to their offense, or in this year if Rashee Rice was out of the lineup. Like they would just keep finding a way. That's just not how it works. No quarterback, no team can do that. So there was a lot of external factors that kind of hurt the Dolphins, and I don't think that Tua needs to shoulder all of the blame just because he wasn't able to overcome all of those things. We can't always just judge a quarterback based on can they overcome all of the issues of a team. There's only a handful of quarterbacks at any given time, and a very small handful at that show that they're capable of being able to do that. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes being one of them. But it's just not like we can't say, well, only the quarterbacks that prove that they can do that consistently are worthy of the money. There's just not enough good quarterbacks in the NFL of that level. It's just not. And if there were, then that would not make Patrick Mahomes special. Then how could we say that Patrick Mahomes is special? Because part of what makes him special is him able to overcome some of those things, or to take advantage of the Tyreek Hills, of the Travis Kelce's on his team to the maximum ability. We know that Tua has shown that he can maximize the players around him. We've seen that. We've seen the offense. We've seen the numbers that he can put up. That alone shows a lot, shows worthy of a pretty good contract, especially if there was no injury history. Then it was just like, I don't really know what you could say to say that he's not worthy of a contract like this, because again, in 2024 going into 25, 26, 27, this contract is not going to be that big of a deal. He's signing a contract right now that's going to pay him like 53, 54, whatever it is, million. And next season, they're talking about Brock Purdy signing a $65 million a year contract. Dak Prescott getting 65. The number's only getting higher. So that's why I'm saying this is essentially equivalent to Tua signing like a $45 million contract. That's great. That's great. If you don't think that he's a $45 million contract, a $45 million a year contract quarterback right now, I don't really know what to tell you, because he clearly is. He is a level up of the Geno Smiths, the Baker Mayfields. Like, he is. He's proven that. He's put up better numbers. He's been more consistent. And I think he has the potential. I think he's got a slow start to his career because of the team that he had, because of the coaches that he had. And I do trust their head coach in evaluating who Tua is and the levels of success that they can have with him. So I'm really excited for Tua. I'm really happy that he got his money. I'm happy that now, because it seems like every time we talked about Tua for the last, like, I don't even know, man, like 8 months or so, it was just constantly like, should Tua get paid? Should Tua get paid? Should Tua get paid? I'm happy now that he got paid. He got his money. He got his generational wealth. He got his life-changing money. His family will be taken care of for generations of generations. His kids will all be taken care of forever. That's awesome. And then now we can just evaluate him as a quarterback itself and not have to worry about anything else. But those are just my thoughts. I would absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about Tua getting a 4-year, $212 million extension? And I think it's like 170 something, 180 for guaranteed money. Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights. But But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.